Hey everybody, Adam Savage from Tested here in the Tested offices with members of our extended Tested family, Mel Ho and Kate Sabaker. Hi guys.
Hi.
You have brought a show and tell today which I have known about for well over a year but am seeing for the first time. This is amazing. Will you tell me what this is and what you guys did?
This is Neon Vowels. So we were commissioned for a short film to make the main character.
Which is a robot.
That experiences existential dread in the deserts of New Mexico.
You didn't tell me that second part. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And you designed this, Mel.
Yeah, so basically I talked with the director and they hadn't figured out like an actual design for the robot yet. And so the first week was us just concepting art, like doing a bunch of different iterations of the design of the robot. They wanted something that was a combo of like, you know, Johnny 5 and like Wall-E.
Yeah.
And so this kind of this was birthed from that.
There were some really cool concepts, by the way. Like, I have to say, Mel, you came up with gold. Like, this one's cool, but there were a lot that were left on the cutting room floor.
It must have been quite pleasurable when you found out that they had not locked down a design.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was like a little bit of a like, oh my gosh, so much creative freedom right here.
Right.
And it was fantastic. We ended up going to Urban Ore to just kind of find inspiration.
That's literally where I've been finding inspiration for 30 years in the Bay Area. It's an amazing place.
Yeah, and we found this bread box that just was like, okay, it has some of the specs that we're looking for. It has like the curvature, and then based off of that, I was like, what can we build on top to kind of match the requirements for this job?
Dude, achievement unlocked. I didn't know this was a pre-bought item. It feels like it's right out of Loki, like the Time Variance Authority. I mean, it's really beautiful. And the fact that this was what you started with, the rounded edges of this, and everything else is an add-on.
Yes, like all of it was modeled, 3D printed, or fabricated by Kate. Like Kate made this look awesome.
Well, and originally we had expected the body to be a bit bigger. So when we landed on this, we go, you know, it's just too small, the bread maker is. So then we came up with the concept of this base here that really helped bulk it out.
So even it was just as big as a bread box, it was too small. So what was the build process? How long did you guys have to design, build, and make this thing mechanical?
So we had like about a little bit over a month, but just shy of a month or so.
Just shy of a month?
Yeah, it was sort of like we took over the project from a previous builder that basically kind of like was like, I'm just leaving the project. And so then I called Kate and I was like, hey, how's your October looking? Because I could really use the help. And so yeah, we had about a month to make everything happen. And so it was a lot of just mad dash, like concepting. Once we got that approval, I ended up going straight to CADing. Kate was like starting to start fabricating some of the base. Yeah, it was buck wild.
I can, less than a month sounds crazy. You called me at the beginning of this and asked to come over and sort of pick my brain. And I'm just, where in the process was that you came over to ask me some questions about making a robot for a movie?
We just started.
You
So it was
just-
one of those immediately I was like, Adam, like, what do I do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really, I can't stress enough to people to do that. Go find someone that has chewed on the mud you're about to chew on and ask them what it tastes like. You finished it and you got it to a state where it was like ready to film, and then you took it to set, right? Which is in the normal scheme of things, people think, oh, I build a robot, I bring it to set, they say turn on the robot, you turn on the robot and it works. How was your first day on set with this?
It was pretty crazy. I mean, I would say that like we had that 14-hour drive to New Mexico, and it was sort of like a mad dash to just put everything together. There was sort of like we had assembled it once and kind of tested all of the components, but not on there. And then it sort of was the classic, like we got there, we built it, some things just didn't work off the bat.
And it was none of the things we had anticipated. You know, you build in backups like, okay, this might not work, this might not work. And it was like, oh, well, I never expected that would be the problem.
And this is set work in and of itself, right? Like everything you brought doesn't work, but not the things you thought were going to break.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I think we were mostly worried about the head the whole time because it was sort of, this was the thing that I ended up CADing, and I was like, oh, this is my first time doing any of these mechanisms.
And
like,
you've got a couple of servos in there for the movement, so that's a delicate thing.
Exactly,
yeah.
And we had like, so there's like a light, and then this has like a telescoping lens. It was just,
out.
Yeah.
it was just fairly complex. Like I've never done animatronics before. So this was just like, okay, like let me put my skills to the test.
So that's where you were worried.
I was worried about this, and this actually panned out okay. Like we did a lot of prototyping for it. We, you know, when it moved, we were both like, yay.
Panned out okay. I see what you did there.
And then we bought this arm pre-made because we were just like, okay, we don't got time for this.
Yeah.
We're like, let's make this part easy. We'll buy a pre-made arm, no problem.
I believe my advice was be ready to puppet the arm by hand. Did that happen?
Yeah, so there was, it was like, okay, a couple things, all right?
Yeah.
The thing shattered, I think, like day 2 that we had it, partly because of me, like I just tripped and toppled it over, and the whole thing sheared because a lot of it was just resin prints.
Oh,
And we found out the hard way that
It was this was
printed.
you bought this from a factory, and some of the internal components were resin 3D printed.
Yes. So I had to fashion like a mechanical solution for one of the axes because it completely broke. And that was just like a mad dash to do. So that was already like
Without a resin printer.
without a resin printer or anything. So we just like, okay, cool. I ended up doing standoffs, like metal standoffs. It
Yeah.
was a weird wood solution. And then one of the motors just decided to explode when we were on set. And that was sort of like, it's all in serial. So I had to like hardwire, like basically bypass one of them, lock the motor in. And then even then we ended up just using gaffer's tape. Some weird, like, we replaced the board on it to try to use it to move around with the computer by hand. And then at one point when all else failed, Kate was just like the MVP. Kate was like on the floor doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
I had a green suit.
This is the thing is that, it's why I gave you the advice, because there's also sometimes the director's going to ask for something that is not at all physically possible with the motors. I will tell you on Ghostbusters Afterlife, I asked Jason Reitman about that beautiful take where McKenna Grace says to the ghost of her grandfather, how do you know this stuff? And the light shines on his diplomas. And they had a mechanical light with motors in it, but for that specific joke, I was like, how'd you get those motors? And he was like, the prop guy got up in a green suit and made the light do that because the gesture was the joke.
Yeah.
That's so amazing that you ended
Yeah.
up doing so much of that. Was the amount of abuse it took on set shocking?
Yeah, I think it held up really well. Aside from the arm specifically crapping out, everything else really performed well. I mean,
And it rises up and down,
it
right?
does. Actually, I have a remote here. So this base is for a standing desk.
Oh, so it goes between the two modes.
So then we have a remote, which we did not have on set. It didn't work on set. So I was connected to the power line, and it would only work if you unplugged and replugged it back in. So then I would have to lay on the ground, unplug, replug, hit the button, and hope that it got to the place we needed to. But now we actually have...
Hold down and then press down again. There we go.
Oh, there we go.
It never works when you want it to.
No, this is, I mean, the best laid plans. You thought the pre-bought arm would be your the least problematic thing.
Yep.
I mean, it is so, I have been in every one of those situations, as have you, I'm sure.
Right? This actually made shooting some of the scenes a lot easier because they wanted to get certain angles with the camera. So they were like, oh, can we just lower it down? And then we have the angle we want already. So that was an unexpected nice thing. We knew it just needed to animate as if it was coming to life or going to sleep. So that was something we knew we wanted. We didn't realize it would make shooting a little easier as well.
I'm curious about the first moment you actually saw your bot in the world you built it for.
It was really cool.
I'll bet.
There was a moment, like, I remember just being like, we're on a movie set. This is happening. We just spent so much time in like the shop building this thing and like not knowing if it's going to work. And then it was animated and like people on set were like stoked that it was like moving around and acting like a creature. And I don't know, it was magical. There was a magical moment
And
there.
the view of it in the desert, they built up a fake, concrete center island for it to live on. And you're like, oh, that reads. Okay, that's a drive-through. There's a menu next to it. I get it.
Amazing. I had given you the advice that that you would get asked to do things with this that it so couldn't do that when that happened, the trick was to ask yourself, what problem are they trying to solve? because you know what this can do. Did you find yourself helping production solve problems by bringing your knowledge to it?
Yeah, there was a couple like scenes where it was just like, there's a pebble in here and we want it to pop out with a feather and it's gonna hold this feather. And there was just so much of like, okay, like that's a lot of complex motions. This arm barely can rotate at itself at times.
Well, and it physically can't reach the eye over here. So that was another one of me off camera holding the end of the feather, jabbing it to unstick the pebble, but you think that it's the arm.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It is, what's hilarious is you could never pitch the operational parameters that you end up with on set could never be pitched in advance. Like, well, the arm's probably not gonna move that far, so we'll just do that with a puppet. And they'd be like, what are these people doing? They're a bunch of amateurs. And then you're out on set and they're like, doesn't work, let's do it with a puppet.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like conversations where it was just sort of like, we have plan A, we have plan B, and we have plan C. And you got, and they had to accept the terms of that. Because like, again, I took your advice and I was just like, okay, look, we have this much time. We're gonna put a lot of effort into making all the features you want, because there's so much feature creep coming in.
Yeah.
And we're gonna make it as it goes, but here's the plan B and plan C. And having them accept that helped a lot.
And they did accept that.
Yes, they did.
That's fantastic. So that makes it a collaborative atmosphere, and then you're all pulling on the same rope.
Yeah.
I think one of the big benefits of this wasn't, for one small scene. This is the main character of the whole film. Right. So as opposed to how a lot of prop or miniature people get treated on set, where it's like, okay, just come and do what you need to do.
Come do your thing, don't make any noise and get out.
Yeah, everybody was very, very kind, and like they would come and say, how much time do you need? This isn't a rush. If you tell me, I will let them all know, and we will give you space. It was incredibly nice.
That's not common on sets, by the way.
I feel like we were very spoiled.
Yes.
Yeah, it was great. And like, I don't know, there were some things that like, it broke down during some of the scenes, but then we had like, the way that this was modular, we were able to just repair it within like 15 to 20 minutes, which was super nice. Like they loved us for doing that. They were just like, oh, it doesn't take that long for it to go back up. Cool. Yeah.
Isn't that exciting?
It's great.
The going away from set with a thing and doing some work and coming back with a thing and everyone's surprised how quickly it happened.
Yes.
I'm remembering now what an endorphin rush that can be.
Yeah.
How about have you gotten to see any of the cut scenes with it yet?
Oh yeah.
So we saw a trailer for it, and I got to go to a crew screening in New York for it. And I have to say, it's one of those things where I think this is probably every project I've ever worked on, where you're like, well, we got it done. I don't know if it's gonna, how it's gonna look, but it's done. And then you walk away after seeing it and go, that looks so much better than I thought.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, the amount of emotion and personality that comes from an otherwise, like hard, inanimate object is kind of insane. I have to credit Mel's design of that face. There's so much that comes to that face, and even just a slight eye in and out, or like a head tilt, and it just feels like you're watching a puppy.
Oh,
It's
that's
so
lovely. Now, you guys had got a taste for this.
Yeah.
Am I right? You've started a little enterprise. Sorry, I don't mean to say it like that. You have started an enterprise to tease that taste.
Yes, and you can see actually. So I'll pull out my very advanced stopper here. You can see the manufacturer's plate.
MKULTRA Industries.
Mel and Kate doing
Ultra.
crazy psychedelic weird stuff.
I'll tell you, one of the design aspects I really love is how much this feels like something meant to withstand abuse, like fast food or amusement park constructions. These big corners and the grease of 100,000 kids' hands and spilled Diet Cokes. I can feel it on the surface of
And
this.
it has to live in the middle of the New Mexico desert. That's the setting for it. So we knew it couldn't be this delicate techno machine. It has to be a tank.
That is amazing. Oh my God. And so now you guys you're putting up your shingle to make robots for other needs.
Yeah, we pretty much want to make animatronics or creatures that can move and have electronics components as much as possible.
Yeah. Basically just combining both of our skill sets to have fun and like cause chaos, I think, is the main goal. So
it sounds like it was a really hard job and that you had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Both of those things are true.
I mean,
Yes.
it's always going to be difficult. It is really nice when it's also fun.
Yeah.
That's great. It sounds like you also worked on a production where they really understood what you were doing and what the mission was. That
Yeah.
also makes a huge difference.
They gave us a tremendous amount of freedom and a ton of understanding, and it was probably the best case of us working out our first job bumps, and then it just cemented for me that Mel is the person I want to do this with.
No, it was.
Kismet.
It was so good. It was like again the best of both worlds. It was just like challenging, fun project, and then just hanging out with my best friend and building really cool things. Yeah.
It's so inspiring to see it here all assembled. I've been watching you guys put it together this morning. It's fantastic. Gorgeous work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think we also would be remiss if we didn't give shout outs to the people who helped us, like, say, our own Jen Schachter. She really helped with the fabrication of the base. She also was the third person in our van driving the 14 hours to New Mexico. Mel doesn't have their license, so it was me and Jen just trading off, and for no other reason than she's our best friend.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
and
you guys are like a
wanted to.
country song.
Yeah, Jen is like MVP
Yeah.
for sure.
And
Ian
Ian.
Charnas, I want to just throw out a shout out to Ian Charnas for basically being my emotional support system during the engineering parts of things.
3 a.m. calls.
3 a.m. calls, just being like, Ian, what this motor? And he was like, all right, let's walk this through basic principles. Step
It is
one.
so nice when stuff goes hectic to have a Gary Sinise back at the base that you can call for assistance and give you a calm breakdown.
Exactly.
Amazing. Ian's great. Guys, congratulations in every
you.
way.
So everybody check out this. The short film is titled Neon Vowels, which is the name of this robot, and it will be on the festival circuit in 2024.
Link is in the description for everything you need to know. Also links to your guys' site. Excellent.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you guys for joining us here, Tessa. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.